Fog of war has settled over the unrest in Libya. There's conflicting reports on the number of killed, airstrikes by Gaddafi forces, the number of cities controlled by the opposition, pretty much everything that's being reported. Last week, a wave of correspondence suggested the opposition was in control of almost the whole country and Gaddafi was doomed. RT's Oksana Boyko went to the opposition-held Benghazi to find out why these turned out to be exaggerations.
The allure of a war. Incomprehensible as it sounds, it's present in any conflict. Just days ago, these parents feared for their children's lives. Today, they are taking their pictures in front of the tanks. The desire to be captured laughing in the face of danger is even stronger among journalists. And the conflict in Libya is providing a perfect setting for it. On TV screens, Benghazi may look like the center of the rebel resistance.
The country is waking to another day of chaos.
Gaddafi may have lost about half of his country.
They watched these bombs fall from the skies.
But in reality, it's more like a seaside resort than a conflict zone. Hotels are fully booked with journalists, and residents go about their daily lives. Here, boys are looking for new things to play with. Toy guns are in ample supply. Yet some reports sent from Benghazi refer to the situation in eastern Libya as war. Not a conflict zone where rebels are engaged in sporadic and isolated pitched battles with pro-Gaddafi forces, but an all-out war.
Muammar Gaddafi is striking back.
Forces loyal to Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi appear to be advancing east.
Libya's leader Muammar Gaddafi has fled the country.
With rebels professing their readiness to fight Gaddafi's regime to the bitter end, no wonder news reports are carrying predictions of imminent civil war. Yet, as the rebels' inability to mount a fully fledged offensive becomes more apparent, so is the unbalanced nature of the coverage. Rather than being impartial observers, some networks stop short of directing the protesters. But here, the Al Jazeera crew is warming up the crowd in time for their next live report. Jinan Musa was one of the first reporters to arrive in Benghazi. For several days, she's been traveling with the rebels about 200 kilometers west of the city. At some point, the pro-government forces opened fire at her crew, a focal point of her report.
There's a war going on, and whether we like it or not, there's a front line, you know, and there are people with guns, and there are two sides fighting.
News channels know that gunfire and explosions make for strong TV, but they also can't help to blow things out of proportion. And with journalists unable to report freely from Tripoli and other Gaddafi-controlled parts of Libya, some can find themselves sucked in by the rebel sides of the story.
The rebels are just opening up to journalists. They just love them, and just whenever they take one city, we go with them, and then we go into the other city.
But reporters need rebels too. Here in the opposition's press center in Benghazi, internet access is unrestricted and the coffee available 24 hours. The message is on the wall and sometimes finds its way into reports.
Recent reports are saying that government forces, meaning Gaddafi's forces, bombed a weapons depot in on the edge of one of these cities. The weapons depot had already been taken over by the rebels, and it was a government weapons depot to begin with. The rebels took it over, but when Gaddafi bombed it, then, of course, he was the enemy and he was the dictator and he's the terrorist. If Canadian forces marched into Washington, D.C. and took over the Pentagon and we responded, nobody would call the American government a terrorist government for protecting our own interests.
Many people think that being a war correspondent takes a lot of courage and hard work, but actually often it's much easier and far more enjoyable than routine journalistic assignments, especially when the receiving side is so accommodating. The problem here in Benghazi is that some reporters became not only part of the story, but its main driving force. And instead of hoping that full-blown confrontation and bloodshed could be averted, they're almost calling for it. Oksana Boyko, RT, Benghazi, Libya.